What makes A24 so perfect? Well, we get the most outlandish, ambitious, and unique stories that will ever pierce our very two eyes.
Holy shit, I'm gonna come.
With the Hollywood blockbuster formula that includes trilogies, never-ending sequels, prequels, and remakes that we see all the time, A24 has ditched the formulaic, money-driven mindset that a lot of the major Hollywood studios cling to. And instead, they focus on what matters most to them. And that's... Okay, I'm wrong for that teaser, but let's start from the beginning. A24 isn't your traditional Hollywood studio. Founded in 2012 by these three gentlemen, Daniel Katz, John Hodges, and David Finkel, all of them in which are seasoned veterans in the movie biz. Their sole focus of the company is to distribute great stories to the masses. With only 4 small budget films set to be released in 2013, there was one film in particular that put A24 on the map, and a movie that everyone should be familiar with by now, and that's Spring Breakers.
I got shorts, every fucking color.
But the story of how they got this film? Masterful. Let me ask you something. What do you get when you combine a cardboard box, glass gun bong, and some duct tape? Well, you get the movie you want. This was the story of The Gift Basket. They wanted to make a great impression to the producers that they were the right studio for them, and they did anything they could to get it. The Gift Basket included a glass gun bong, a box, and duct tape, because that's all they had. David Finkel described it as it looked like a bomb, but this just shows the dedication and commitment that A24 wants for their studio.
This is my fucking way. This is how I win. Alright?
And to them, if it even takes a janky gift basket, they'll do anything to show these stories to the masses. And the rest was history. A24 has 2 founding principles. I'm gonna stop myself right there because Vox already explained this pretty well. Let me show you.
The company was founded on 2 sort of basic creative principles. The first was that they were going to give directors almost unprecedented creative freedom.
Thank you, Vox, for that amazing explanation. We should all know by now that A24 is basically the cool kids of the film industry. Ever since the peak of the MCU in 2019, post-COVID, the big 6 studios, they're mainly here for profit. And it's starting to become a realization for a lot of mainstream audience members because most of these movies are becoming worse and worse as the years go on. This is not just a poke at superhero movies, but this is true for a lot of different genres. Look at the Oscars this year. The Oscar categories have at least one indie film amongst them. Trust me, it's not just the Oscars. People are wanting to see these films. Indie movies have seen a huge jump from $811.7 million in 2022 to $1.47 billion in the box office just this past December. If it weren't for A24, the brand, the marketing, stories that they pick, I'm not sure we'd be able to see all these stories in theaters across the nation or on these streaming services. It's the way A24 chooses its movies so perfectly. They know which one feels right to them and they go with their gut. And they know how it would translate to audiences. Because in all the perfection of this, in 2016, everything shifted for A24. Because this time around, they took side of the production to risk it for a film that would eventually win them their first major accolade for Best Picture.
This is not a joke. Moonlight has won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
Now this was the turning point. Everyone took notice of who A24 is, the viral moment in Oscar history that turned them mainstream. After Moonlight took home 3 Oscars that night, the low-budget drama captivated the mainstream audience overnight with a moving story and, of course, its stunning visuals. And it kept getting better year after year for them. A genre that cannot be ignored when it comes to A24 are their horror films. While we have OG horror classics such as Halloween, Saw, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and now too many predictable horror flicks, A24 is doing something different. And they're basically redefining the modern day horror film and taking that risk of going with an original idea from the filmmakers. They've given us original horror films such as The Witch, It Comes at Night, X, Hereditary, Midsommar, and now Talk to Me. And mind you, some of these films didn't even have the breakout directors or breakout actors to boost the film's reputation. A24 has given now notable directors such as Robert Eggers, who has given us historical epics, and the nightmare visionary himself, Ari Aster. And this is also true. A24 gets horror. Now, some of these A24 horror films are bizarre and aren't particularly amazing by any means, but they do offer something unique in their own right, is that they give the most strange, unsettling, and terrifying visuals or stories that audiences may ever experience. This multiverse mindbender of a film from the amazing directors, the Daniels, took A24 to a whole nother level. In 2023, A24 took over the Oscars.
Dreams are something you have to believe in. I almost gave up on mine. To all of you out there, please keep your dreams alive.
The studio was able to set a record for winning the top 6 categories in a single night. Amidst all of the triumphs and successes that A24 has had this past year and the years before that, they've continued to stick to their word, and that is putting the films and filmmakers over the money. Even with the writers and actors strikes over the summer in 2023, they were able to meet the demands of both the actors and the writers in July. This was way before any of the major studios were able to strike a deal with any of the writers. And this says a lot coming from A24. Today, A24 is the disruptor of the film industry. Every single film that A24 distributes has its own style and is able to stand on its own 2 feet. This gives auteur filmmakers a chance to tell their own stories their way. We're practically seeing every A24 feature released to theaters, so that the mainstream audience has a chance to see a different kind of artistic spectacle. A24 is a shining example and is giving light at the end of the tunnel for upcoming indie filmmakers and indie studios. A24 is able to showcase that every single one of these unique art house films are able to coexist with big blockbuster films no matter what is released in theaters. One of the coolest things that has come out of A24 this past year is that YouTubers have been able to infiltrate the studio in a good way. Talk to Me, as I mentioned previously, was able to surpass Hereditary as their highest grossing horror film to date. Made by the Raka Raka brothers, Danny and Michael Filipu, they were able to make their dreams become a reality. Because A24 was the only studio to give them the creative voice and the creative freedom that they needed to tell the story the way they wanted to.
We were initially going to do it with a big Hollywood studio, but their creative notes were just not aligned with ours.
We threw the dice every step of the way with this film, so for it to get picked up by A24 was
Insane, yeah.
a dream come true.
Recently, VisiPop, a well-known animation creator here on YouTube, was able to launch in tandem with A24 as their first animated project. It's really inspiring to see YouTubers being able to shine outside of this platform because, well, the history of YouTubers going outside and trying to do a movie or TV show doesn't really translate well to the mainstream audiences. So to see creators such as Raka Raka being able to launch in tandem with studios such as A24 really gives us creators hope that we can transition outside of the platform. A24 as a studio is able to shine over its competitors. They've been able to nab appeal and recognition from both the millennial and Gen Z generations. Their notoriety falls back on their founding principle, and that is to put their films and filmmakers first, because they have diverse perspectives and edgy storytelling. Now that's artistic integrity at its finest. Gen Z has seen the artistic bravery that A24 has relinquished into the world of film to showcase new ideas and new storytelling abilities that differ from the mainstream blockbuster films. And it's true, we need artistic diversity in the film industry. A studio that can push the boundaries of what can be showcased in a theater. They've given new outlets to all of these independent movies to shine through all of the formulaic movies that we've seen millions of times over. And reluctantly, it was something that A24 was able to pioneer. They've shown these major studios time and time again that they need the creative freedom for these projects to thrive and deserve to be shown to a mainstream audience. With all their movies and TV shows that they showcase to us, they allow us, the audience, to feel something that we've never felt before. Films distributed by A24 are supposed to be outlandish and strange and weird, because in reality, that's what sets them apart from the major studios. And this is their winning formula. They've given artists, filmmakers, and storytellers all new perspectives and new ways to make films. They're breaking the foundations of what films are supposed to be. and they're proving and standing tall amongst the major studios in Hollywood. From a little studio that could to now the largest independent film studio in the world, anything is possible. And you're right, anything is possible because they used AI to promote one of their latest films for Civil War. And here are some of the images that they posted to their Instagram. At first glance, doesn't look too bad, but once you really zoom in and see the details, like 3 doors on a car, the buildings look off, the backpacks on this image in San Francisco is poorly done, and so many other details, this just throws artist integrity that A24 has out the window. Because instead of hiring VFX artists, graphic artists, or a CG artist to create these posters, they used AI. And that is very unfortunate how a company and the brand that A24 stands for has been thrown out the window. What's the point of this video? Who knows? I wanted to address this and put this in the video because this can't go unnoticed. AI in Hollywood is starting to become more and more of a prevalent thing nowadays. If you're fighting against it, then keep fighting against it. Because if there's a lot of pushback, I do believe that AI can be used in other ways, such as it being utilized as a tool rather than replacing an actual artist. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching the entirety of this video and hear me rant about A24. Of course, there are other major independent studios, but I just thought this one was just too unique to not talk about. So if you learned something new, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to have more content coming out through the coming months, and I will catch you in the next one.